What was the first 6 months like?
Go fucking make money.
What was your first stint into entrepreneurship? How did you stumble into that and starting your first company?
Being an entrepreneur is a crazy freaking job.
You mentioned you had a deal with your wife. How important is having the right kind of companion in this journey?
I was on at 6 in the morning with Asia. I'm going to be on at 10 o'clock tonight. And you need to have someone who understands.
I don't want to rather tell the story that don't be an entrepreneur.
You know, if you make money, you live another day.
And now you have 5% of the company, you get nothing.
I highly recommend for the people who are listening to this podcast. I love this show.
Hey guys, welcome back to Funds and Founders. We have Albert with us today. I met Albert at VC Immersions in Bentonville, Arkansas. I think you were in town for some work with Fuel and just in town for the event. But love the energy. We chatted for like an hour or two outside of the deck of the Heartland Health Center. And I just love the vibe, and you're so supercharged. You're waiting for a trip to Taiwan, but just quickly tell folks what's top of mind right now. For anyone listening, what do you want to plug? Where should folks reach out? What do you want them to go see about you? And then we'll head into the conversation after.
So I'm old as dirt. I describe myself as an American-trained Canadian. I've literally lived on the Klingon homeworld and back. I've been everywhere, and I've been in tech for a long, long time. And for the last 25 years, give me congratulations. I never thought I could ever do anything like this. Last February was the 25th anniversary of my company, Behr Associates.
Congrats.
Where we find the coolest IP on the planet in all areas of science. And we go into strategic partnership deals to drive the companies, these little startup companies, to become world dominant players and ultimately create liquidity events. You can check out my website at BehrAssociates.com. No, I'm not the Behr paint guy. Although I was on the phone with Behr Paint this morning, which is really funny. They go, "Behr, are you the same Behr?" I go, "No, I'm not." If it was, we wouldn't be having this conversation. I would be sitting in Taiwan or Aruba or something right now. And and if you have some interesting intellectual property, please reach out to me, and we'll see if we can help you out.
Well, so one thing I like to focus on in the podcast is just entrepreneurship in general. And I feel like nowadays the word entrepreneurship is so easily thrown around that I think people don't completely understand what it means to build a true company, what it means to build a well-balanced, profitable company, whether you're building it to cash out or building it to like innovate and change some industry. But what was your first stint into entrepreneurship? How did you stumble into that and starting your first company?
I didn't really stumble into it. I got fed up of working for the man. Right. So, again, this American trained Canadian. So I have everyone loves Canadians, right? Because we're kind of harmless and everything, but American trained with the aggressiveness. So I worked for some of the world's largest tech companies, and people like me that can talk technology and talk finance and are natural sales guys, they turn us into product managers. And ultimately product managers turn into CEOs of companies. And so, after a while, the money wasn't really the issue because you're getting your paycheck every 2 weeks. You're paying your bills. It's not just an existential issue. And I was missing something. Another product release from companies that really, really well. And you just get tired of it and you lose the passion for it. And I felt that there had to be more. And after 15, 17 years, something like that, of working for, the Microsofts and the IBMs and the Fujitsus and the AT&Ts and the Symantec's. And I said, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. And this is when we were living in Redmond at the time. And my wife and I had a deal. And I said, look, I just can't do this anymore. It's a young man's game. We had 2 children at this point. And we said, look, we got to do something else. I want to do something else. If it's just another friggin' dot release or point release or full release, like great, but the passion was gone. And I started Behr Associates. And the reason why, the deal that I had with my wife at the time was, okay, so you got 6 months. If it doesn't work in 6 months, and I'll define what that meant, by the way, is that if it doesn't work in 6 months, then shut your mouth and go get yourself a CXO position, Chief Marketing Officer, CEO, COO, whatever. Go get yourself a job at some promising company, and basically you've tasted it, and tasted entrepreneurship, and this is all 25 years ago. And now entrepreneurship now is not what it was then. It was kind of people thought it was a stupid, ballsy move. Why would you do that? Why wouldn't you just go work for another company or go work for the guys in Redmond again or the Valley or what have you? And I said, no, I can't do this shit. I'm done, right? And the deal was we have 6 months, right? I had 6 months. And the rule was as long as we're making more money than we're burning, then don't stop. And here it is 25 years later, which just blows me away. And I can tell you something that at the time it felt like a really risky move. I was in these very senior positions because I kept on getting bought, right? As a company, I was in these senior positions with, as I described, velvet handcuffs, and people figured, that when we came back home to Toronto, I live in Toronto, and when I came back home, I was just going to cool my heels for 6 months and then pick up some CEO or CXO position,
some leadership role.
Yeah, but I was done. Right. And because I wanted to be an entrepreneur and I wanted to make a difference. The one thing that's wonderful, and you have to be cut from that cloth. The wonderful thing about being an entrepreneur is you have no one to blame but yourself, and you can't fire yourself.
100%.
Right? And you have the lowest lows and you have the highest highs. And so it takes a specific type of person to be able to do that. But I can tell you something, after doing 25 years of this, I have zero freaking regrets. I am so happy that I made that move at the time, which at the time was considered a really risky move. And in the meantime, all my friends who stayed in the big company all got screwed over one way or the other. When they hit their mid-50s, they were done, goodbye, and then they have these existential issues. What am I going to do with the rest of my life? And here I am, 64 years old. I still got my hair, right? And I got a passion, and I'm doing the best work of my career, and I'm loving life. So who's the winner? So, entrepreneurship has been an absolute blessing for me. It really has.
Before we talk about those first 6 months, wanted to take a quick detour. You mentioned you had a deal with your wife. How important is having the right kind of companion in this journey? Because I've had a lot of founders on the podcast who talk about, their relationships aren't going well. They gain weight because they put so much stress on building the company that they let this relationship or companionship just for granted. They take it for granted, right? So let's talk about that a little bit, of how important that was to your journey and why having the right kind of partner and companion truly makes or breaks sort of your journey for some people.
So I in technology terms, I always describe it as, you date before you marry, and you license before you get acquired. And that's one of the catchphrases of what Behr Associates has done for years. You date before you marry, and you license before you get acquired. Very few weddings that happen at the Elvis Chapel of Love in Vegas survive on a shotgun. So in 2 days is my 38th anniversary with my wife.
Congrats.
Thank you. And I'm a Star, as you can see over here, I'm a Star Trek kind of nerd here, Gen 1, right? And, and I dragged my wife to the Klingon homeworld and back. And she had to put her career on the side. She's a professional. She's a VP, CFO of a company. And every time we moved somewhere, she had to sit and do absolutely nothing, because visas are good for you as the worker, but your spouse typically does nothing.
100%.
It's really hard, really, really hard. And I cannot say, there is no way at all. I say it all the time that I couldn't do without my wonderful wife. I really mean that. It's not just about the moral support and having this, being an entrepreneur is a crazy freaking job.
100%.
Right? I was on at 6 a.m. with Asia, and I'm going to be on at 10 o'clock tonight. And you need to have someone who understands and pushes you along and listens to your highs and lows and this kind of stuff. You need to have that. And I've just seen friends who have had bad relationships or didn't have supportive partners, and they're trying to be all they can be on one side, try to change the world or follow their passion, and then they come back home and it's a disaster, and they turn into alcoholics and they get divorced and drugs and the whole smack.
100%.
So I can tell you, in Behr Associates, so I'm outward facing. I'm outward facing. I deal with clients all day and everything, and my wife deals with all the books, which basically is a half-time job on top of her job she has right now. And there's no, I have an MBA in finance from literally when the earth cooled, and I learned something about when you have an MBA in finance: hire a good accountant. and so she does everything, and there's no way in hell I could do my job and do the work we're doing if it wasn't for a supportive partner, emotionally as well as physically, actually doing the back end of the business. So core and fundamental is the long
100%. One of the reasons I started this is I know a lot of founders personally who will tell me the shit they're going through outside of the public eye. But when I get them on the podcast, when you read about what they're posting on LinkedIn, it's all like happy-go-lucky. Yeah, I raised some money. Oh yeah, I'm getting customers. Growth has slowed down, but we're still growing. But you can see that they're on fire. Something's happening here. Code's not working there. Someone quit. Someone took money. Your relationship isn't going well. And I feel like that's one of the things I want to highlight. I don't want to rather tell the story that don't be an entrepreneur, but I want to say understand what you're getting into, understand the journey, understand the why, understand your why, or else you're going to quit the first sign the first time you see an exit, you'll just quit. Be like, I'm done. I don't want to do this. And I think that it's very important to really be in the game, have a partner who can call bullshit, who can push you when you're down, who can say, hey, are you sure this is the highest priority for you right now? And sort of, grounds you. So
I got that yesterday. I went out for dinner with some guy who works with the Canadian government, wanted to see me, right? These people for years. It doesn't matter where they're at. They're the people you know. And I came home. She goes, "Was that a waste of time?" I go, "Yeah. It's great to see him, but it was a waste of time. Like governments are generally all a waste of time." And she says, "Told you so," right? So like you need someone to basically,
100%.
especially when you're starting. Hey, I just met Jensen Wang at in NVIDIA 2 weeks ago. She, yeah. Like the laundry needs to get done. You need someone to ground you.
100%.
Really,
100%.
super, super important. And you need someone to kick the shit out of you, and they do it not to be a dickhead. They do it because they love you.
100%.
Right? And so,
And I think if you start deflecting that, or if you start making that something that it isn't, it's probably just showing signs of you finding an escape route, or you finding a way out of the difficult decision that needs to be made. And my wife was telling me a couple of weeks ago, I was like, are you sure you should be doing this? Like, why not, like I had like a newsletter and stuff over, like, why not do this? Why not work on this idea or that venture or whatever? And I think it's some of those, like, you need someone to be like, okay, this is what's important. Maybe I got distracted for a second, but you can realign and just get down to what needs to be done.
And they may be right and they may be wrong, but at least you're having an honest, open conversation.
100%.
And you don't have that conversation with anyone else.
100%. Going back to your journey, you started Behr Associates. What was the first 6 months like? How did you start? What was the idea? Was it all like, all the chips falling in order as soon as you started? Or what was the first 6 months like?
First of all, a few axioms. Number one is fear is a powerful motivator, right? I wanted to make it work. So I was all in. But I was also pragmatic. I'm not going to put my family and my young children. I'm a grandfather now, right? I wasn't going to put anyone at risk, but I want to take a shot, right? And again, that goes back to the supportive spouse. So the comments I got were, two people I trusted. Trusted my wife, number one. I needed support to say, let's give this a shot because it's going to cost us money, right? We're not going to make any money. I don't really know what the fuck I'm doing here. I know that I know what I did for big companies very successfully.
Yeah.
I want to see if I can adapt this for small companies to help them become big players. All right. And so the number one, it was funny. So it's day one. Okay, we're going to do it, Al. Yeah, the wife's at work, right? And I'm sitting there by myself. We got a baby screaming there, right? And
how old was your kid at the time?
What's that?
How old was your kid at the time?
Well, the oldest Andrew would have been 5. And 5. And Jonathan was born when we were living in Seattle in Redmond. And so he was newborn. He was a dual citizen. He was born, and then 6 months later, we moved back from Redmond to Toronto, right? And so he's dual. So we had a nanny, so I couldn't do that all by myself. I mean, so she would work. Someone's got to pay the bills, right? And but I remember I talked to my accountant, and I'm sitting thinking about things like, I'm sitting there thinking about, what's the design going to be of my business card? I need to go get a website kind of thing, right? And I'm thinking about all the bullshitty stuff, right? And I talked to my accountant, and I said, so I got to do all this shit. I got to go get the company registered and this and that and all, right? And he turns to me, he looks at me square, and Steve. And Steve turns to me, he goes, Albert, let me give you a great piece of advice. I go, yeah. He says, you're a new entrepreneur. You're just starting your brand new business. You and I could be selling books or be a dentist. Same advice. And I go, what's your advice? Tell me. He says, and I quote, he goes, go fucking make money. Just make money. Just, if you make money, you live another day. You breathe another day. So go make some fucking money. Don't you spend days and days on bullshit stuff with what's your font going to be like, and what's your logo going to be like, and what's your color palette going to be like. Go make some fucking money. And I took it right to heart. And I went and I was heads down. And so I was bound and determined to get my first 1 or 2. I knew that if I could get 3 clients in parallel with Behr Associates, I was good to go, right? Because no one particular company can fuck me over. And that's frankly one of the reasons why I left the big companies, because you have those velvet handcuffs and you live and die by that company, period. And what happens is that's the highest risk poker there is. And I said, I don't want to do that anymore, right? I want to go make sure I have 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. Now I'm sitting at 15 clients, right, at any one point in time. So no particular company can screw you over, and you can actually be pure and you can really help people. So you're not just beholden to, oh my God, I need $5,000 a month or $10,000 a month.
And I think a lot of people underestimate, and I'm going to make like some bad analogy here, but when people talk about product market fit and they're running their company and they have customers paying, they tend to not look at the distribution of, to your point, the clients that you have. And it just takes one bad event, one person to leave a company to be like, hey, we don't need this product anymore. And that's 80% of your revenue. But we're so naive that you're like, oh no, I'm making $1 million a year, but 800K of that is coming from this one company who just shut down your contract and is not going to pay you anymore, right? And so to your point, yeah.
If you're in any business, if you have you have Walmart as your client and they represent 90% of your business, that's a really yay, right? But it's really dangerous, and you should be spending 50% of your time figuring out how I de-risk myself as a company to make sure I get a Target or a Restoration Hardware or a Kroger or whoever to go in to augment that, because you're cruising for a bruising, because shit happens 100%. Always. Everything's dynamic. It's always in a state of flux. And if you arrogantly believe the party's going to last forever, can you say .com .bomb, right? Can you say the housing crisis? Can you say COVID, right? Like, shit happens always. So
it's so funny you mentioned that, because there's something going on at work where someone got pissed off. Some big hardware, I'm trying not to say names, some big hardware company is now not going to get contracts or like at least any POs for the near future because they pissed the wrong person off. It has nothing to do with the company, or it's just that their rep in town pissed off the wrong person, and for the foreseeable future, we're not going to acquire anything from them. Right. And that could be a really big business for someone, right? So
we just landed a huge client, a very huge client, just like a few days ago. Great, good for Behr Associates, right? What's the first thing I'm thinking about? Okay, who else can I get immediately? So that's great, fabulous. We can help them a lot. It's a major technology company, and they want us to help drive their business. That's just outstanding, right? What's the first thing that's in my head? How do I get the next one? Not, oh boy, how am I going to harvest this for the next 2 years? Remember, I'm 64. I'm pretty well done at this point.
Yeah.
I still think that way. You know what? Andy Grove said it best. Andy Grove used to be the CEO. He was the founder of Intel, and he was a Nazi war survivor, right? And his phrase always was healthy paranoia. Don't be paranoid that it just paralyzes you. Realize that somebody's stronger and bigger, and everything is always dynamic, so you better stay ahead of the curve.
100%. I think understanding who your competitors are and like understanding who is a risk, who you should watch out for, who you should try to actively like take market share from, I think it's very important as a founder, because it just takes one event for them to get so much momentum that now everyone's talking about them, all media is talking about them, every customer wants to go to them because they're the hot new startup. And if you don't keep track of that, it's very easy for you to lose steam.
Think of it like this. So you're completely correct. Abby, I want you to sit and think about it. So you've come up with the latest, greatest, new, here, I got one right here. So this is a company I'm working with in France. They've come up with this crazy new PV technology, photovoltaic, right? So like this does stuff that you simply can't do with PV that we know today.
Yeah.
Right? And so they're a disruptor in every form and function. Like this stuff does things that you can't do with PV on roofs and stuff.
Yeah.
It's extraordinary, right? But you're the disruptor. But the disruptor can be disrupted very quickly. So don't live on your laurels. Don't live on your arrogance. You run. And then, and ultimately you want to drive liquidity events. One thing that I think is an important lesson for entrepreneurs, I can't speak if we're in the table business. I can't speak if we're in the light business. Well, maybe light, I guess. But in the technology business, I want you to sit and I want you to think about how many companies How many engineers, how many MBAs, how many science STEM people do we crank out in North America every year? How many of them become a unicorn? 1 in a million? You hear about
100%.
millions. You don't hear about all the other people that are at all the other
100%.
universities and all the other states and provinces, and no one is successful, right? And so if you're lucky enough to be in the right spot at the right time and you get sucked into the vortex, you don't push, you get pulled into these things because you're solving a problem. First of all, you thank God that you're lucky. You were one of a very, really small minority, like 1% out of all the tech. I look at on average 3,000 companies a year, 3,000, right? And they come, and it's all inbound. What I can tell you is that Kenny Rogers said it best. You got to know when to hold them. You got to know when to fold them, right? What happens is, how many of those companies become the unicorns that everyone gets all excited about and become the worldwide dominant player for an extended period of time? Apple, Microsoft, now NVIDIA. Intel was it. I got all this. I showed you before the podcast started. I showed you all that. That thing over there is an Intel thing right there. There, the world's first handheld, right? What's Intel now? They're in deep doo-doo, right? So you got to get in and you got to get out. I cannot say that strongly enough. I teach PhD engineers and I teach MBAs for years at universities. And the number one lesson I've learned out of everything I've learned out of technology is get the fuck in and get the fuck out as fast as possible, because nature is not kind for a technology company over a period of 5, 10, 15, 20 years. It's not.
Especially when you have disruption events.
Yeah, right? And that's, to me as an entrepreneur, that's a critical lesson that a lot of entrepreneurs just don't understand, because they figure once they got something and it's starting to work, they figure that the party's going to last forever. It doesn't, man.
Yeah.
40 years of tech. Trust me, I've been through that. I was in Redmond. I was in Silicon Valley when .com and .bomb hit. Everyone thought the party was going to keep on going on and on and on and on. Boy, oh boy, did the shit hit the fan at the time, right? So don't believe your own bullshit, if you want my honest opinion.
100%. And taking a slight pivot there, let's talk about liquidity events, right? So Can you briefly cover what are the options for an entrepreneur? Like what kinds of liquidity are feasible? And we can generalize a little for just tech companies or whatever you want to generalize on. But can we talk through some of the liquidity events and how can a founder get in and get something out, whatever it be, whatever the amount be or whatever the event be?
I get beaten up all the time because of this, because I say things which unfortunately sometimes are politically incorrect. But unfortunately, the problem is I'm right. And they can't.
I 100% agree. 100% agree.
So I talk fast. I talk a lot. You should have seen me 30 years ago. I've calmed down. But here's what I've learned. You date before you marry and you license before you get acquired. Period. IPOs, all this stuff is not an exit, especially you as the owner. You're handcuffed like crazy. You only have these windows. An IPO is a financing exercise. It's not a liquidity event. Not, right? You want to create shareholder wealth. Number one is you got to maintain your cap table. What happens is, as long as you're in charge of your business, i.e. you and typically your partner, because most of these companies are two people that start, because they're two buddies, and hey, we got an idea, and one is more the techie guy, and the other one is more the sales girl, and he's the guy, and she's the whatever. But there's typically two, not one. But let's call it one or two. Well, the most important thing you need to do, which is why I've been running my business for 25 years, it's all about the strategic partners. I cannot say that strongly enough. And this flies directly in the face of everything that people have been taught about VCs and Silicon Valley and all this stuff. I don't give a shit. I'm speaking from a position of experience, and I've done this for a long time. Overwhelmingly, the guys who made money were the ones who dated before they married and licensed their technology to a big company before they got acquired. That's what all we do all day, every day. Let me give you an example. So we've come up, it's not about convincing the CTO of a big company or the chief science officer that you got some cool shit. Yeah, okay. It's not about the CTO. The CFOs run the company. The CEOs run the company. It's about financial risk. So if you're a big company, one of Albert's axioms, big companies always win. Full stop. I don't want to hear about Google. I don't want to hear about OpenAI. I don't want to hear about Amazon. I don't want to hear about Microsoft, because they're complete, entire outlier conditions. Entirely. Like one of a million, right? the vast majority of technology companies fail. 98%, because they can't get capitalized, because they go and they have some angel money or some friends and family and fools money. And what happens is they can't go and they can't traverse to get the Series A. They can't get some money. You have two partners. One of them says, I got to make a living. They go and take a powder because they're taking pressure from their spouse that they're starving to death. And the company dies time after time after time after time. Strategic partners, if you can show that you're extending their product offering, I want you to think about Coca-Cola, Diet Coke, Cherry Coke, Coke Light, Vanilla Coke, Coke, right? You take a look at Wendy's. You're going in, would you like to biggie size it? Would you want a Frosty with it? Hey, we'll do a Baconator. We'll do a Baconator Junior. We'll do a Baconator Senior, right? It's about brand extension. How many freaking Cheerios are on the shelf, for God's sake? Started with Cheerios, because it's all about making more money. Right? And if you go to a big company and say, hey, you're selling Cheerios and using my shit, you can go and do this new Cheerios, right? Less filling, tastes great, whatever it is. And they license your technology and they bring it to the worldwide market where they capitalize it and they sell it and they support it. And you're getting a royalty stream. You don't have to raise $50 million or $100 million or $10 million. Your job is just to make sure that they're delighted. And sooner or later, the CFO is going to get fed because there's a revenue split. We charge so much per box of Cheerios, right? And sooner or later, some CFO or someone in corporate development, which was me in those big companies, they're going to say, fuck that. We're already selling this shit. It's working. Why are we giving away all these points every quarter on a royalty check? Just buy these assholes. That's how I got bought, and that's how I ended up in Silicon Valley, and that's how I ended up in Redmond, right? So in that entire scenario, I never said VC once, did I? I never. So yeah, angel, yeah, family, this kind of stuff. The minute you have a product which is commercially viable, where you show that you can actually make money despite yourself because they bought it because it works, you're a little company. Take it to the biggest company on the planet because they always win. They always win. And that's the lesson that's learned on how to go and how to commercialize technology and how to create liquidity events. This is the only way, Abby, that I've ever seen a consistent way over and over and over again that you're able to create a liquidity event for whatever the damn thing you build. Any other way, I've seen nothing but abject failure.
I really like that you said that, because one of the things that I've talked to a lot of founders who've raised VC in some capacity, whether it's a Series A, B, or seed, or pre-seed, or whatever you want to call the round nowadays, is that the VC incentive is very different than the founder incentive.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, 100%. And I feel like a lot of founders who take the VC money take it because they want sort of this comfort, or they want this idea of like, oh, I have some safety, I can afford my paycheck, I can afford my employee's paycheck, but now you have all this pressure, and then you slowly lose control of the board, and then you don't know proper cash management, and now you got to raise a follow-on round, and now you have 5% of the company, and when there is a liquidity event, you get nothing because you're so far down the chain.
And everyone who worked their asses off don't get anything.
100%.
Right? I highly recommend, for the people who are listening to this podcast, I highly recommend. I love this show, and I lived there. Right? You have to watch Silicon Valley.
100%. Yeah,
I
just restarted it a couple of days ago, but yeah,
it's really real. It's so close to the truth. The craziness. The guy's doing a vision quest and eating a bag of shrooms and stuff. The same crazy shit happened. Like, it really did. But here's the net. Every time the entrepreneur got fucked over.
100%.
So then, okay, so as a scientist, if every time something happens, what makes you think you're any better, any smarter, any less smart? You're no different. So that's clearly not working. Maybe we should think about something else. And that's the model that we followed successfully for years, and it works.
And the one thing that I think is slightly skewed nowadays is people are chasing these outcomes. People are chasing these headlines of 25-year-old sold his company, 22-year-old at Stanford dropout raised $100 million. Meta bought this Scale AI guy for $15 billion. He's a 28-year-old. You don't know the deal structure. You don't know who's actually getting what. The headline you read is 28-year-old got $15 billion payout from Meta. And now you're like, oh, I want to be that guy. And so I think the incentives are so misaligned here, because entrepreneurs are working towards an outcome that is an unrealistic outcome. And it's such a small percentage that you just get burnt out along the way and you're never in it for it.
Let me tell you how it plays out. So a couple of axioms. I don't know if you're probably too young to remember this movie. It was called Wall Street, right? And it was Gordon Gekko, right?
No, I don't know this. Yeah.
Douglas, and his famous phrase at the time was, "Greed is good." Let me tell you something. What I've learned with 100% of the cases of my friends when there was an acquisition offer, 100% of them who said, "That's not enough. I'm worth more," arrogantly, right? If you offer me 100 million or 50 million, fuck off. I'm worth $1 billion. 100% of them failed. Because what happened was nature pours a vacuum. The big company says, okay, fine. You don't want to do that? Piss off. We're done with you. They buy your competitor. And all of a sudden you're on the outside looking in and you're fucked, right? So that's my first comment. The second comment is, let me tell you how it works with VCs. What they do is they have this thing called, okay, so you start your company, you have friends and family, you get common shares. Everyone's in it together, right? You take more money in, everyone gets crunched down the same way. Everyone gets diluted the same way. They get pref shares. They have all these crazy ass ratchets. They get their money out first, this and that and everything. And entrepreneurs who are scientists don't understand really what that means. It's just eyewash to them. But then what happens is they give them a great valuation. So they think, oh, wow, I got really cool shit. I'm worth $100 billion, right? Oh, look at me. And I'm counting the money and it means absolutely nothing. And then what happens is they force you to do a business plan where we're giving you $10 million or $5 million or $20 million. And you must spend all of that money within the first 12 to 15 months, because that's why we're giving you the money, says the VC. We're not giving it to you so you sit in the bank. You're going to spend the money. And if you've ever been to the Valley and you come out of SFO and you're driving down the 101 or drive north on the 101, there's all these goddamn gargantuan billboards for some AI company no one's ever heard of before and no one will ever hear of again, right? Because they have to spend the cash. So what happens is, let me tell you how tech works. Engineers lie to you and salespeople lie to you. What happens is any date that an engineer gives you, you may as well triple it. Anything that a sales guy tells you is going to be triple at 1/3 of the price. Right? Because they're all trying to save their jobs, right? So now what happens is you sign up to a plan, you're the CEO, you go balls to the walls, you spend all this money, and you run out of cash, and then what happens is you have nowhere to go, and what happens, you go back to the VC, and now all of a sudden they don't own 40% of the company, now they own 70% of the company, and now you're an employee of your own company. And that ends up, you hit the nail right on the head, Abby, right? At the end of this, I have a customer, 2 really nice guys, really hardworking guys, smart guys, family guys. They started off with 100%. They're down to 3% each, and they were paid by the board $60,000 a year to have their salaries. Like, what the hell, right? And I go, why are you doing that, right? Real customer, right? Current customer. And they go, because we have a responsibility. Why do you have a responsibility? These guys screwed you over. You're not taking care of your family. You're not taking care of your staff. Do something about this, right? And so, greed is bad, number one. And number two, be really careful on the T's and C's, the terms and conditions with these VCs, because science is hard. It takes forever, and they're going to force you to a situation where you're going to become an employee of your own company. Watch Silicon Valley is my message.
And I think founders who get into this game and they want to play the game, they don't want to build a company. I've met founders who are like, oh yeah, I'm doing a bridge round and a follow-on round. And, we have like 3 months of runway, but, I need a little bit of cash to get to this stage. You're just playing the game of raise. And either you cash out or you just miserably fail. And now the VC takes over the company, right? So again, very outcome driven, and people don't talk about, like, a VC will never go and talk about their failed investments and what happened with them. No. You just hear about those 4 good ones that made them 100x, but what about the 40 that they just put money in and like they lost money, right? So I think, again, it's biased. All the news online is biased. All the social media is biased. And then now with all these AI tools, like, I run an agency and founders come to me saying, hey, I need you to build this in a week. I'm like, well, why do you think a week is possible? Oh, because I saw this video and this AI tool said that you can just build with prompting. I'm like, then go do that And then if it doesn't work, then come back to me and I'll give you a realistic plan. Like I do understand it's speeding stuff up, but again, you're not looking at the full picture. You just see this one viral post and this one viral video, and you think you can rebuild your whole company because that guy said they can do it in 3 days. I've been building your app for like 8 months. Don't you think I understand your code base better than this person who doesn't have any context? But anyways.
Abby, there's no free ride. What I've seen before, like I've seen this over and over, like where I do a lot of deep tech stuff, right? And you know, if you can create something in a week or 2 weeks or 4 weeks, what makes you so special versus everyone else? We live in a big world, right? Does it make a difference if you're sitting in Canada, US, you're sitting in India, you're sitting in Taiwan, you're sitting what smart people are smart people. And there's no free ride on intellectual property development. It's hard and it's hard work and it's science. Science is tough, right? And you got to be able to go and have a theory and test it and have the thing, to have something work is not easy. Most things never work, right? So yeah, so anyone comes in and I'm just going to put an AI tool and I'm going to go do an LLM, blah, blah, blah. Well then get out. I have zero interest in those kinds of companies because there's nothing of a enduring quality.
100%. And it's also with day by day, if you're just a rapper, if you're just sort of like some sort of prompt output, understand that to your point, anyone can do that. So why you? Like, what's your moat? Maybe you have distribution. Maybe that counts for something, but also that's a very solvable problem for someone else, right? So
again, if you think about .com, what you're describing is exactly what happened during .com. Hey, I'm going to set up a website. And now, to be fair, Toys R Us is gone now, right? Yeah. But at the time,
I think they do just e-com. I think the brand is around, but yes, the stores are gone. Yeah.
Yeah, well, actually, in Canada, they're still here. There's Toys R Us and Babies R Us are still here. It was different owner, right? But the point is that at the time, Toys.com, that had nothing other than a website, had a higher valuation than Toys R Us brick and mortar across North America. That's a crazy thought. Pets.com advertised on the Super Bowl in 2000. Take a look at it, right? And they were this multi-billion-dollar company. And what happened was they had zero sustaining value, and that's what caused .bomb. And here you are with AI. 25 years later, it's the same shit. Times don't change. Times change. It's the same thing. Unless you have something deep. If somebody gives you a rapper. I'm into Monty Python because I'm Canadian, right? It was like, run away, run away, run away. You're like, no, absolutely not. No free ride in tech development, period.
Percent, yeah. So we were talking, you said licensing before acquisition, right? And can we briefly touch upon how does someone go about this, right? So let's say I've solved a problem. I have some sort of tech that works in this space. You said go to the biggest player possible 100%. And start licensing your tech. 100%. How does someone even figure out who the right partner is, how to approach them? Any guidance there, any analogies or stories there to go on?
Life is than it was 25 years ago trying to do this. I haven't changed my model in 25 years. See, I'll say it again. It's the only model that I've ever seen, and I've tried everything. You name it, I've tried it, right? It's the only thing that's actually rinse and repeatable. Okay, so here's a little secret, right? So Abby, you're sitting, where are you right now? In Bentonville? You're not. Some city. Rogers, Fayetteville, whatever, right? Okay, so you're just a person. I'm just a person. The number one lesson that I've learned over the years is all these people that I've hung out with are just people. Yeah, they got the fancy titles and this and that. They're just fucking people. And here's the neat thing. If you reach out to them and you show respect and you show them how you can make money for their company, it's all about them. Big companies always win. It's not about how wonderful your technology is. And if I had $1 for every freaking PowerPoint that's being sent to me, like 50 slides on some painful whatever, right? And they're going through every screen. All they care about is to make their numbers. They're all public companies. If you have some enabling technology that helps me accelerate my product roadmap for me to make more money now, as opposed to me having to try and build it myself, keep talking. In 25 years of licensing, I've never had one of our company's technology stolen. Zero. Zero. 25 years of tech companies, right? The most important thing you got to learn is, and it's not about some person you met whose aunt or uncle is connected or this or that. We have LinkedIn, you have Apollo, you got all these unbelievable tools out there. Go find out who is the CEO of the company. Go find out who's the VP of new product introduction, corporate development, VP. Anything under VP is a complete waste of skin. Done. They're all staffies. Because if it's VP and higher, C, of a big company, they're the only ones that can make a decision. The boss says, hey, I really like this. And the boss goes and turns to his or her staff and say, you got to look at this because I think this is important. They're going to hop and hop big time. If I go and I reach to a lower level person, they're not going to do shit because they're not going to rock the boat. That's not my station. I'm a director in marketing and some whatever. No, go to the boss. They're frigging human beings. You tell them, here's who I am. Here's what we have. Here's how we can here's how we think we can help your business for you to make more money, biggie size, right? More Cheerios, whatever. That's the magic trick right there. Because here's the coolest thing. They're humans. And there is a good chance that they're going to listen to you. And people go, how's that possible? How could you reach out to the CEO of General Motors? The answer is watch me. LinkedIn. Like Apollo. Hello? On Google, CEO, General Motors, whatever, right? Bang, here's the person's name. Great, you got the person's name. Go into Apollo, type in their name. Bang, now you got their email address. Hello, grow some balls, go reach out to them. That's simple. And then people say, that's it? I go, that's it. And but that doesn't make any sense. I go, that's the point. No one does this. By the way, I charge a lot of money what I just told everyone on this, so you can send me royalty checks, please. I'm not joking. This is how I do it. It's true though. Like people are people, and when I've worked for some of these people. You know these names, these people. These guys founded the industry, and I could tell you stories of them puking everywhere and doing all kinds of crazy shit because they're people just like everyone else.
100%.
The fact is, they just happen to start the company, right?
My only one follow up to that is when cold outreach doesn't work. I mean, you could keep trying different avenues, warm intros here and there, but to your point of, is there ever a notion of giving up that channel, or should you just, if I know, for example, General Motors is the big company who needs to license my tech, do you ever stop trying to get them, or do you just attack from every avenue you can?
So if you think about the world that we live in, it's generally an oligopoly. Okay, so I got my AirPods right here, right? Okay, so you got Apple AirPods, you got Samsung, you got Bose, you got Beats, which is Apple, right? You got JBL, you got, let's say 5, 6 companies, and no one else matters, right? You got a car company, biggest industry in the world, biggest industry. So you got 5, 6 companies, you got all kinds of brands underneath them, 5, 6, 7 companies. That's it, right? I go everything's an oligopoly. So we're on a Mac right now. Here's the other Mac, right? You got Mac, you got Lenovo, you got Dell, you got HP, right? So you don't assume that it's just GM. If it's good for GM, it's good for Ford, and it's good for Nissan and Toyota and all those because it's oligopoly. So you don't reach out to one, you reach out to all of them at the same time because you don't know which one's going to bite. You're not in the board meeting. You don't know what's going on there. You have no idea what the conversation is, right? So you reach out to all of them at the same time. And then what happens, you reach out to them and you keep pounding away on them, right? And if you don't get a reach back by 4 or 5 times, well, then you may not, but let's do a data set. Okay, so let's assume an oligopoly, there's 5 companies that matter. And it takes maturity and discipline, and ignore everyone else. All of them. No one else matters. Because if you get one of the smaller ones, you high five each other and you got to go get another one. You get a big one, everything changes instantly overnight with the company.
And then every other player wants in now.
Right, 100%. Or they buy your competitor, the other guys. Then you go to the other guys. right? They need to have a competitive response. But here's the thing. So let's say there's 5 companies and you got 5 executives that you're reaching out to. That's 25. That's a data set of 25. I'm applying, and the engineers do understand this because engineers understand scientific principle. They don't understand the sales marketing crazy stuff, but they understand scientific principles. Okay, so if we do 25 reach outs, 5 times 5, right? And you go and you reach out to these companies and you hit them 2 or 3 times. So let's say we hit them 3 times. Now you're dealing with a data set of 75 reach outs. And if you get 0 of 75, you may think that your AirPods are the latest and greatest, best fucking thing in the world. But empirically, the company that you care about it the most doesn't appear to give a shit, right? So you may not like the data, right? But to ignore that data, scientist, you're making a catastrophic mistake. Because what happens is you can't raise money because the VC thing we've just talked about, it's all about corporate venture. It's all about strategic partners. If you can't get them to bite, where's the money going to come from to run the staff and to pay your bills? The answer is the Bank of Abbey. So now you go max out your Visa and MasterCard and American Express. Then you take your line of credit. Then you take a second mortgage. Then you become an alcoholic and you lose your house and you get divorced. And that's the way the world plays. So the smart people may not like the data, but if we've reached out like that and those companies are not interested, if they're interested, they run. I just closed I was in Taipei, 3 weeks ago? This will be announced on the 23rd. So this is 6 days from now. There's a major event in Las Vegas with Hewlett Packard Enterprise. And we're making a major, major announcement. And we got this thing done in 4 weeks, right? Major quantum announcement, right? And what happened was we took it to HP and the theory of, they're big companies, they don't move fast. Bullshit. Complete bullshit. If you hit them in the right spot at the right time, they move instantly. It's astonishing how fast big companies can move when they want to. They really can, right? And so what happens is if they bite, they run, you're off to the races, which is about to happen. We're about to wait for the big kaboom here in 6 days, right? With a quantum company we're working on right now, right? But conversely, if we reach out to these guys and we pound away 3 times to the same person and they ignore you or they tell you to fuck off, then you don't like the data. But if you continue going down that path, you're going to lose your house. So stop it. Stop it before you hurt yourself. No one likes having cancer, but if you don't deal with it, it's going to kill you. So hack off your arm if you have to, sadly. So sorry for the harshness, but that's what I've learned.
So two analogies I'll take out from that, right? So to your point, if you have the right leader aligned within the company and your incentive is pretty clear to them, to your point, they will move at the speed that needs to be moved to make it happen, right?
Absolutely.
And I think understanding if your value prop is good enough and you're approaching the right person within a company, you will either see traction and if you don't, maybe your value prop isn't good enough, right? So to your point, look at that data, understand that. I think the other thing that I'd love your take on is what is the right pitch, right? So you mentioned 5 executives, 5 companies, 75 reach outs. What is the pitch that matters here, right? So because there's a lot of content out there on how to write the perfect cold email, right? But to your point, what is the nitty gritty? Like, what do I need in this comms that I'm sending out? What matters, what doesn't matter? If you have any tips there.
Sure. So let's say you and I have gone and built the next noise canceling algorithm. We have some great new algorithm that where, like right now, we're about to see the Universal Translator, Star Trek guy here. The Universal Translator is now coming on stream right now after 40 years of people talking about the science fiction stuff. So you're going to be sitting there with your meta glasses or you're sitting there with your AirPods. And what's going to do live translation, which is really fucking cool, by the way, right? So let's say, okay, so who cares about that? These guys care about that, right? Because it's a new feature, especially if you have the patents and you've done the proper IP work and this kind of stuff. So it's not about that I've come up with this great new translating thingy, right? When I reach out to Apple, I say, hey guys, how about if we put this into the AirPods Pro 3? And one of the great new features on 2 versus 3 is you have this live translation. Wouldn't that be fucking cool? We have the technology. We are in the licensing business. We're not going to build our own AirPods. It's all about you. They're the dog. We're the tail, right? Are you interested in having a conversation? That's the message. It's all about them. And you saw, like, you talk to an entrepreneur, and they're going to spend pages and pages to talk about the algorithm, all real-time translation, it's cloud-based this, and it's computationally that, blah, 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 blah. The CEO doesn't give a rat's ass about that. What he cares about is like, hey, I'm going to show this to my product people because we're working on AirPods 3 or 4 or whatever it is. And, that seems like a really cool idea. Let's bring in the general manager. Let's bring in the CTO and say, so what do you think, guys? And they will absolutely consider, because the boss said, what do you think? Right? Then you've got a shot. It's all about the dog. It's not about the tail. Hands down, the number one issue I see with all of our clients, they always talk about how wonderful their shit is. And I don't give a fuck how wonderful their shit is. The question is your stuff important to HP or Dell or Lenovo or Asus or Acer? And can you help them drive more sales with a new version of a product? When I was in the big companies, you have to understand that 50% of the technology, how are we doing time-wise? Sorry.
50. We have 10 minutes.
Okay, good. Beautiful. Okay. Is that when I worked for these big companies, once we got bought, I would end up in corporate development, right? And you have to understand, let's use an example. There's at least 50 vendors that are sitting inside this iPhone, including Samsung. Samsung batteries, Samsung displays, right? So even though they compete with Android versus iPhone, they're actually supplying Apple with components, right? So you have to understand that 50% of technology that's brought to the market is generally licensed in, and it just has the name Apple on it, or HP, or Dell, or Frigidaire, whatever. And if the minute you understand that, and what happens is, I go back to where we started this conversation, which is you date before you marry and you license before you get acquired, is you try before you buy it. If they like it, it seems to make sense, they'll try it. They'll go and they'll package it up. Maybe they'll pick one region, or a geography, or they'll pick a vertical or something, and they'll see if the dog eats the dog food. And if the dog starts eating the dog food in year 2, what they do is they take it more broadly. And if the dog continues to eat the dog food and keeps going like this, then your ass is bought by the time you get to year 3. Always. Because because they've proxied that engineering to you, and the shit works. 50% of technology that you're looking at, that we're talking in right now, was vended into that vendor, not developed internally. There's buildings at Redmond. When I was there, they had buildings, big ass buildings, filled with people, not to do corporate espionage, to find out what the hell's out there so they can accelerate their roadmap and not have to build it themselves. That's why that's why you don't see theft. Because they don't care about stealing it. They care if they got more money than God. If it's important and it works and we like the engineers, then we're buying these guys. End of story. Does that help?
I think, I don't know if this is the right analogy, but all these big LLM companies are now buying the next best coding LLM company. And to your point of, like, they could have probably built it, but if it's available and it's good, why not go that route of, yeah.
It's a no-brainer. How do you think companies become big?
Yeah. Well, I know we have 6 minutes left. I'll try to be on time. But a couple of quick questions I wanted to ask you was, how did your approach to building a company change after your first liquidation event?
I didn't have to sweat about paying the Visa statement at the end of the month. It didn't. It endorsed what I knew was right. It's like I did it twice within 4 years. I ran the same play twice, right? Complete. One was security. The other, well, I guess we're both sort of security, but they both were in IT. And I now, literally, you name the area of science, I'm in it. Absolutely. It doesn't matter what the science is. Clean tech, material science, space tech, a lot of dual use right now. IT, retail tech, Bentonville, right? It doesn't matter. Is that when I saw it happen twice, back to back, I realized I actually had a rinse and repeatable model. So nothing changed, to be honest. The only thing that changed was emotionally. It's like I don't have to worry about my kids being taken care of and the bills are paid, and I didn't lose my mind. I didn't go buy airplanes and cottages up north and shit like that. I just thank God that because we had no money. We didn't come from money, right? And so nothing changed. All it did is it further emboldened me that I found a way, and that's why I love what I do. And that's why you feel the fire and the passion, because I want to make a difference. I've always wanted to make a difference. That's why I've lived in all these places over my life, is that I want to help younger people, to show them that there is another way to do this, and it is completely entirely possible. And what I love about it is it completely pisses people off, because it flies directly in the face of what everyone is taught when they go to an engineering school or comp sci or get their MBA or what have you. Because show me empirically over 40 or 50 years that this has worked. I don't want to hear about the fucking outliers. Outliers are outliers. Talk to me about the 99% of the others. This works, and that's nothing has changed, to be honest. It's economically great. Otherwise, no. I'm still the same obnoxious little talking guy that I always have been.
You've lived in all these places: Seattle, SF, Japan, Toronto. I don't know where else. But what would you say is something that stands out in all these places with entrepreneurship?
Really good question. I would say so. I got my MBA in the States, right? And I've lived in Europe. I've lived in Asia. I've lived across North America, multiple places. And I keep coming back to Toronto because it's home, right? It's a good place. It's a great place to have a family, to be honest, right? And for my Indian friend right there, I'm sitting about 3 kilometers from the largest Indian community by far in North America. As you know what Brampton is, right there, like literally on the other side of the river here. Is that what I've learned is that, first of all, every society has flaws, right? I've been very lucky to have these, like I work for a Japanese company, and clearly I'm not Japanese.
Yeah.
When I ran international, I was the only non-Japanese person on the floor of 500 people of Fujitsu in Tokyo.
Yeah.
Right? And what I've learned is, let's talk about America for a second, right? America's got all kinds. Every country has flaws. Every country has pros and cons. But let me tell you something that America has that no one has, not even remotely close, right? America, hands down, are the best entrepreneurs. No one even comes close to touching American entrepreneurs. Canadians are kind of a vanilla version. The Europeans are worse. The Asians are even worse than there. It's about risk. It goes back to the statement of World War II, right? When they were talking about the U-boats going in and attacking in the Atlantic Fleet. Right? The commander at the time would say, "Damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead." I'm sure you've heard that phrase before, right? And he's saying basically, fuck it. We don't care. We're going, right? And Americans have that unique personality that no one else has. You could talk to the Germans that frankly have way better technology than we do.
100%, yeah.
They're really outstanding engineers, like really amazing engineers. I know that because I'm a dual citizen. I'm German and Canadian, and I spend years with the research institutes there. And so they're way better engineering than we are. The problem is they're a bunch of wimps. They're afraid to go, and it has to be 100% solution. And they got to take this step-by-step approach. Americans say, I think I got something, I'm going, right? And that is entirely unique, right? Is that, and if you blow up in the United States, you dust yourself off, you don't get the shit, what happens is, people say, he's kind of failed, he had failed 1 or 2 experiences, but that's okay because now they're smarter because of it. You look at these other parts of the world, and what happens is that's like a scarlet letter. Oh, he had a failed company. She had a failed company. They're going to do something wrong. So there's a risk averseness in the other parts of the world that simply don't exist in the United States. So
100% agree.
I live in Canada, technically, right? But the vast majority of my business, it's not where I source all this technology from around the world, where I'm terminating it almost 100% of the time, is in the United States of America. So that's because it's the most vibrant, entrepreneurs economy in the world. So it's, the lesson that I learned by all these places. And I think about Israel, and I think about Singapore, and I think about Sweden, and I think about Korea, right? Do you think Samsung would be the size of Samsung today if they just tried to deal with South Korea? Do you think IKEA guy would be one of the world's richest men if he was just stuck in a country of 7 million people? That's the population of the Toronto area. Like, no, they've never confused where they live with where they make their money. So the lesson I learned is where you come from, it really doesn't matter. It's where you terminated at. And overwhelmingly, it's U.S. 7 of 10 top tech companies in the world are American. There's a reason why.
And I think to your point, that risk-taking appetite, you don't see it a lot of places. So that's a very particular kind of, yeah.
Entrepreneurs are revered in the United States and other places of the world. If you're an entrepreneur, it means that you lost your job and you can't find another job.
Sweet. Well, I appreciate the time. I know we're at time. We'll plug everything for you, and then we'll try to do an in-person episode when you're in Bentonville in September, I think is what you said. So we'll stay in touch there. But we'll plug. Do you want to plug yourself once again? Where should people reach out? What can we link for you? Where can we send people who are listening?
Sure. So website is BehrAssociates.com, BEHR Associates.com. My email address is Behrassociates.com. If you think you have some interesting IP, I will always look at stuff all day, every day. But I forewarn you right now, I'm a lovable little guy, but I'm pretty brutal, right? I do it out of respect. I don't do it out of trying to be a dick. And if you have something interesting, I'd love to see it. And if I can help you, we try to help you out. And Abby, I want to thank you for the opportunity, and hopefully this was what you wanted for the podcast.
Just even if 5 people listen to this, I just love your energy. I can't say that enough. I just love the passion with which you talk about this stuff. And I feel like not a lot of people are comfortable with talking online about how, VC is not the best, and this is how you should build a company. And people try to sugarcoat stuff, but I like the fact that you're just willing to say it as it is and based on your experience.